This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a realistic CD-2300 from 1987. I haven't deliberately shifted focus to MIDI-sized players, but this is the third in succession, and I have to say the form factor is really growing on me. Realistic was a brand created by Radio Shack for sale in their stores, and was therefore fairly budget conscious. Even so, it looks pretty classy with its blue and silver colour scheme. This particular device was sold as having no power, but when I tried it I found that the power button was simply jammed solid. It seems like someone has already been inside this unit as it's missing 2 case screws, and one of the remaining ones is not original. That's usually an ominous sign, but it was at least flagged by the seller. I'm hoping that it hasn't been too damaged, as I believe that this model has an unusual transport mechanism that I'm keen to see in action. This thing is a bit wobbly because it's actually missing one of its feet. They just seem to be foam feet that have been stuck on, so it shouldn't be too hard to replace that. Well, someone's just wedged this screw in here. Actually, given its size, I'm willing to bet that was what was jamming the power switch, because the linkage arm is probably going to the back here. Yep. It's now totally free. Have I just repaired this before I even open it up? Oh, well, I said one of the screws wasn't original. Neither of them are. Well, this is all a bit untidy. They haven't made much attempt to neaten that up. Yeah, you can see the screw had gone through there and just jammed that linkage. Well, if that really is the only fault, I'm going to struggle to make this one 20 minutes long. So let's plug it in. Well, for 1987, it had to be, didn't it? Well, thank goodness for that. It's not working. It won't eject now. Okay, well, that's got to be a belt issue, hasn't it? It's just not quite clamping down properly. But we do have a disc read and a total time. Okay, we're hooked up to the amp. Well, it seems there's not much wrong with this player, but I mentioned that it has an interesting transport mechanism, and that's from this rack gear here that's moving the laser sled. So if I go to track 10, now I don't think it's the fastest, but it is interesting. So I can only guess that somebody opened this up because it wasn't clamping the disc properly, somehow lost the screws, put the wrong screws in, and caused somebody else to think that it had no power. Well, I'm going to remove the tray and have a better look at this sled mechanism. In fact, you can see it pretty well from here. And it is a really curious design choice. Why didn't they just have teeth mounted to the side of the sled? I mean, it is quite noisy. I wonder whether some new grease would solve that problem. Anyway, there is a belt under here, so let's get to changing that. Looks like we can just remove the clamp by removing that screw. This end of the spring was just wedged down here. So this cam is obviously operating the disc clamp via this post here. And this post with the metal ring around it seems to slot in here. And I'm guessing that this lever is what operates this to drop the disc down into place. If we remove this gear, well, the tray is just being retained by these 2 posts here. So they should bend out. And that comes out. Yeah, that disc clamp just moves that forward, it slides under here and just drops the disc. Well, I like that. It's nice and simple. This belt change is going to be simple as well. Just hook that off there. Well, it looks like it's burned, but obviously it's not. It's just, I don't know, maybe the oil from the belt has discoloured it. But yeah, the belt is covered in oil and grease. It's very slippy. So that's obviously why it hasn't got the torque necessary to close the clamp. So I'm just going to clean that up with some alcohol. And while we're here, we might as well clean the leaf switch. Well, one advantage of this system is that the laser sled is completely locked when it's not in use. I can't push that. The only way to move it is by turning this, and it's quite a slow process. I can't just turn this. So I just want to clean this limit switch as well. I'm having to do it the long way. it's very dirty as well. Looks similar to another player I looked at, but I can't remember which one. And for that one, I actually gripped it with pliers when I cleaned it. So I think I'm going to do the same again. Because yeah, that's very loose in there. I'm going to use this to replace the belt. And I'm going to remove these gears and re-grease them. Well, that slides out of there very easily. Well, the teeth aren't damaged, but it might be a little bit bent. Yeah, just a little bit, I think. Don't think there's a lot I can do about that. I think all the other teeth are okay as well. And now I've removed those gears, I can freely slide the sled. It seems to move pretty easily. I'll just give it a quick wipe. Well, there is a crack here where it screws onto the sled, but I don't think that's going to be causing any issues. These two locating pins are going to keep it as straight as it can be, so I don't think I need to worry about gluing that. I'm just going to put a drop of oil in all three motor shafts. This front panel is pretty dirty, so I'm going to remove that. And the rear panel as well. It's got a bit of mottling to it, but it looks like it comes detached from the base. So I think it's worth removing that and trying to give that a bit of a shine. That fixing bracket for the front panel was broken. Got 3 fixings in the bottom. This piece is broken as well. Well, the power button linkage is just a thin piece of wire, and it seems this did come with a transit bracket, but I can't really see why it was necessary, because like I said, that transport was never going to move. And it looks like these front panel ribbon cables are socketed, but they've just been friction fitted into these connectors. I don't think they're going to come out easily, so it's going to be easier to remove the front panel board instead. The open close button is a separate board. And it looks like there's just one screw for this board, and everything else is held in with clips. It's not easy to release all these clips at once. There we go. It's quite a cool looking display. There's a spring for the open close button. I quite like the way this play button is sprung by the plastic. The stop button has these foam pads, but everything's been melted into place, so I can't take it out. Well, I can remove these. So I'm going to give all of this a good clean and then reassemble. Actually, let's see if we can remove this back panel. Yeah, well, I really like that. I should be able to get this looking a lot better. Well, it's now the next day. All my parts are clean and dry. And the rear panel didn't come up as well as I hoped. I think it's actually meant to have this speckled appearance, but I didn't want to be too aggressive with it because I didn't want to rub the writing off. So it probably wasn't worth removing it in the end, but at least I tried. The RCA ports look pretty crusty, so it would be a good time to do that now before refitting the back panel. And I usually wire brush them, but I wonder whether just using a strip of wet and dry would be better in this case. Yeah, that certainly looks better. It was all pretty superficial. I think it's worth re-sticking this piece. It's not going to be very strong, but I'm sure it will help. I don't want to spray the accelerator directly on here because I'll probably damage the fascia. So I'll saturate this cotton bud, apply it indirectly. I think that'll be okay if I'm gentle. There was a spring behind this, wasn't there? I was trying to think this morning where that spring came from. I thought perhaps it was the disc clamp. This is the problem when you leave it overnight, you just forget where things were. Well, I do. Right, now we can reassemble our transport, starting with the rack. Definitely don't want to over tighten this with that crack in the plastic. There's actually quite a lot of play in that. I thought those locating pegs would hold it tighter. Okay, that's better. So I'm just going to use this synthetic grease. Can't remember which screw went on there. Try this one. No, I think that wash is too big. Looks better. That grease will work its way round. So for this, I need to locate it in this hole. Also make sure that foot goes in the slot here. Then this spring needs to go in here. And the center peg needs to go in the cam gear. I think I can use the big washer on this one. I possibly should have fitted the tray before fitting that cam gear. I'm going to roll it to its open position. Yeah, I think it's got to come out again. Again, when you forget the order of operations, it's just a bit of a problem. Actually, I probably could have forced that in okay. You can see how this lever here drops the disc onto the spindle. Right, so let's check that belt has done the job. If I over tighten this screw, I've done something wrong. Did I clean the motor spindle? If that's oily, it's going to be slipping on the belt. I forgot about these tabs. That's why it wouldn't feed in when I just reinserted it. So let's have a look at this belt. Yeah, there's a lot of torque there. I don't think that's a problem. Well, I'll just clean it anyway. Yep, that all seems fine. It's not going to win any prizes for speed. I mean, this mechanism certainly doesn't bring any benefits in that regard. I do wish it would display the time by default though. Maybe it could just show the track number initially and then go to the clock. Maybe it's just me, but I always prefer to see the time elapsed. And you can just see the motor making those little adjustments as it plays. I mean, it looks like it's making quite big adjustments, but obviously with the gearing that translates into a very small movement indeed. There was a bit of noise as the disc was spinning, so I'm going to remove this screw and see if I can lubricate under here. Yeah, there is still some of the original grease on there which has dried out. Well, it's still not the quietest, but I don't think you'd hear anything with the case on. And speaking of the case, it is a bit misshapen. No, scratch that, it's very misshapen. The sides bend in a bit. That might be deliberate just to keep it tight, but we've certainly got a bit of a bow here. So I'm just going to use this clamp to try and straighten this out. I don't think it would benefit from being clamped for a period of time. I think it's a sort of momentary thing. Well, I think that's an improvement. Well, it would be nice to neaten up all these wires, but I think the reason they look so untidy is because they're all of different lengths. Like if you try to neaten this up, it just moves the problem down here. I couldn't find a service manual for this, so I can't do any adjustments. But it seems to be playing okay, so that's not too critical. And this is the DAC for all you DAC fans, Toshiba TD6709N. I think I have some spare case screws in my tray here. Well, those fit like a glove and look pretty good too. And most importantly, they don't jam the power switch. Well, I found these which aren't quite as thick, but if I replace all of them, it won't matter. Just clean off the residue with a bit of Goo Gone. And some alcohol to get rid of the Goo Gone. And this one just about fits. It's hard to dislike the Realistic, which just gets on with the job and does it well. I did notice some strange quirks though. When loading a disc, it retains the table of contents information, but if you then stop the disc after pressing play, that information is completely lost. Also, when a disc ends, it displays ED, presumably for end of disc. I've never seen that before, and again the table of contents information is no longer available. These are hardly deal breakers, but are further evidence that the CD-2300, or ED as I now think of it, is an interesting and unusual player. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.